In 2014, a great white shark being tracked off the coast of Australia became the center of an event that science still can't explain. GPS and temperature sensors attached to the animal recorded its movements and dive patterns for several weeks. But then, at one point, the data suddenly changed. The shark had been dragged down to a depth of 2,000 feet. At the exact same time, the sensor recorded a spike in water temperature from 45 degrees Fahrenheit to 77 degrees Fahrenheit in an instant. What did this mean? Had the shark been swallowed alive by another creature? Could a massive predator really have eaten a great white shark whole? At first, researchers thought the device might have malfunctioned, but there were no inconsistencies between the descent rate, the temperature curve, or the GPS location. Everything lined up perfectly. The data clearly pointed to one conclusion: the device had ended up inside a predator's digestive system. But how? What could possibly be big enough to swallow a 10-foot great white in a single bite? The incident was later documented as the Shark Alpha case. Just a few years after the Shark Alpha incident, another event made headlines, this time off the coast of South Africa. Its name, the Penelope incident. But this wasn't about a shark. It involved a research robot equipped with modern technologies. Designed to dive kilometers below the ocean's surface, Penelope was built to observe underwater ecosystems. Its sensors could detect temperature, pressure, sound, and movement with high precision, transmitting data to the central station in real time. But during a routine dive in March 2021, Penelope suddenly vanished. The GPS connection was lost, communication was cut off, and the device disappeared without even sending a tracking signal. At first, it was assumed to be a technical failure. Maybe ocean currents had dragged it away, or perhaps a system error had disrupted its signal. But a few days later, deep-sea microphones in the same area of the ocean recorded a sound that didn't fit anything known. A long, echoing, muffled vibration. It resembled neither a whale song nor the engine of a submarine. The frequency range didn't match any known marine creature. What's more, all marine life in the area had suddenly fled in the direction the sound came from. Later, new robotic devices were sent to the region and discovered something dragged and broken on the seafloor: Penelope's shattered body. The metal parts were bent, and some sections appeared to have been torn apart. But the strangest part was the deep dents on the hull. They definitely weren't caused by impact. They resembled more the crushing force of a giant mouth. So was this a submarine accident? It's possible, but there were no passing ships in the area, nor any diving teams. Could it have been a whale collision? That was unlikely too, because the marks weren't consistent. They gave the impression of a predatory force. Following this incident, sensor records from the region were examined in more detail, and it turned out that Penelope wasn't alone. In recent years, several fishing boats had also disappeared under mysterious circumstances in the same waters. When the hulls of these boats were found on the seafloor, their outer surfaces bore unidentified pressure marks. It looked as if a massive force had grabbed them from above and pulled them beneath the water. So what was this force? There's still no answer. But some scientists are turning to a very intriguing theory to explain these events: giant squids. Yes, we're talking about real giant squids. Once thought to exist only in sailor legends, these creatures are now known to be real. In 2004, Japanese researchers captured live footage of a giant squid in deep waters for the first time. In the years that followed, the creature was recorded on camera multiple times. They can grow longer than 30 feet. According to some sources, specimens as long as 43 feet have been found. But this is precisely where the theory starts to shake, because whatever swallowed Shark Alpha had to be large enough to consume a 10-foot-long shark in a single motion. And even the largest known giant squids don't have a mouth structure capable of swallowing prey that size outright. There's another issue as well. Giant squids aren't warm-blooded. That makes them cold-blooded creatures, typically living in relatively stable temperature zones. But the sudden spike in temperature seen in the Shark Alpha incident directly points to a mammal or a warm-blooded predator. And that rules out giant squids. So in the end, they may explain some things, but not everything. Which means maybe there's another possibility. A creature far more predatory, far more mysterious, and perhaps even one that hunts its own kind. Some scientists and marine biologists have approached the Shark Alpha case from a different angle. According to them, the incident pointed to an intraspecies attack. In other words, the shark may have fallen victim to another shark. That might sound brutal, but it's not unheard of in nature. It's called cannibalism. Some shark species, especially when competition for prey intensifies, may attack members of their own kind. Hierarchical fights within groups or young individuals left isolated can become targets for larger, more dominant sharks. It's possible that shark alpha was the victim of such a predator. But if that's the case, one critical question remains. How big can a cannibal great white shark really be? Shark alpha was approximately 10 feet long. For a shark to swallow it in a single bite, it would have to be at least 20 to 23 feet long. Among the species living today, there are certainly sharks that can reach that size. The great white, the tiger shark, even the Greenland shark. But the problem is, none of these species have ever been observed hunting at that depth, and certainly not with that kind of speed. What's more, the sudden spike in temperature recorded by the sensors was far higher than what a normal shark's digestive system could produce. Some analyses showed that the temperature briefly surged past 77 degrees Fahrenheit. This points either to the presence of a warm-blooded animal or to an abnormal specimen with an extremely high metabolic rate. In short, whatever swallowed shark alpha wasn't a giant squid, nor was it any known shark. It was something else, larger, quieter, more unknown. And maybe, just maybe, this unknown force isn't hiding in shallow waters, but in the deepest darkness. Just like that massive shadow recorded in the Mariana Trench in 2023. In 2023, an advanced network of sensors placed in the Mariana Trench recorded a discovery that sparked widespread debate in the scientific community. At a depth of around 31,800 feet, traces of a moving but unidentified object were detected. These traces caused measurable distortions, not only in the physical properties of the water, but also in surrounding sound patterns and pressure readings. Everything pointed to something massive, silently slicing through the water. No engine noise was recorded, nor any recognizable movement pattern belonging to a known life form. But the physical environment had been disrupted, and that disruption seemed to come from a single object. Hydrophone recordings didn't capture any engine noise or signs of a natural current, but based on microscopic pressure shifts in the water, it was clear that something enormous was moving through the area. The object was compressing the water, yet moving in a muffled silence, almost like a conscious creature trying to conceal its presence. Along its path, some of the microphones also reported that fish sounds in the vicinity had suddenly gone silent. The form detected by the sensors didn't match the size of any known sea creature or underwater vehicle. It wasn't a depth that giant squids could reach, nor a zone accessible to any known submarine. Moreover, the direction of the traces was too deliberate to be dismissed as random drifting. It suggested a conscious route. Some researchers proposed that it could be a natural geological movement, but the sustained motion and consistent direction largely ruled out that possibility. What was most striking, however, was that this event was neither the first nor the only one. Only a few months after the massive shadow was recorded in the Mariana Trench, a different sensor network, this time in the middle of the Pacific, captured another unusual incident. Deep-sea microphones detected a sequence of very low-frequency vibrations occurring at short intervals. These sounds didn't match the acoustic signature of any known organism. But what truly drew attention was the behavioral shift observed in the region at the same time. Across hundreds of kilometers, marine life abruptly changed direction and fled the area. During a period that didn't coincide with any known migration patterns, numerous species, particularly sardines, tuna, and horse mackerel, left the region at an unusually fast pace. When researchers analyzed the routes of some tagged individuals, they found that the escape followed a coordinated and panic-like pattern. Fishing vessels in the area confirmed a similar scenario. Reports stated that fish had suddenly vanished, and once productive fishing zones had gone completely empty almost overnight. Seafloor cameras, which had recorded thriving marine life just days earlier, were now capturing almost no activity at all. It was as if a threat, felt not just by humans, but by the entire marine ecosystem, was moving silently beneath the sea. Scientists believe that even large whales may have been affected by this disturbance. Some audio recordings from the region featured whale tones reverberating at significantly higher frequencies than usual. These are being interpreted as alert signals or directional calls. In other words, not just small fish schools, but the largest species at the top of the food chain may have been disturbed by this silent threat. A shark dragged into the depths by an unknown force. A massive body silently drifting. Strange sounds recorded passing through the deep. Some explain all of these events with just one name, Megalodon. Megalodon was a prehistoric species, the largest predatory shark ever known. Fossil records suggest it could grow up to 60 to 66 feet in length. That's nearly 3 times the size of today's great white. Its jaws were so powerful that it could tear apart a whale in a single bite. It was the only creature capable of swallowing 10-foot sharks whole. That's why it has become one of the most frequently cited theories used to explain the Shark Alpha incident. Because the scale of that attack seems impossible to explain without something the size of a megalodon. But the scientific community believes this species went extinct about 3 million years ago. That conclusion is based on fossil records, tooth discoveries, and historical distribution analyses. In other words, technically, Megalodon is considered no longer alive. Still, it's worth noting that the existence of this species was never confirmed through live observation. And with over 80% of the ocean still unexplored, is it truly impossible for such a creature to survive in hiding? Some fishermen and sailors have reported seeing massive shadows on their radar systems in recent years, shadows said to exceed 65 feet in length. These shadows, when swimming close to the surface, would briefly register on sonar systems, but then vanish almost immediately. In addition, low-frequency underwater sounds recorded in certain regions don't match any known species of fish, and some researchers claim that these acoustic patterns resemble the vocalizations of prehistoric predators. However, none of these claims have been verified through direct imaging or scientific analysis. All we have are traces, a shadow, a sound, but no creature. And whatever is leaving those traces must be at least the size of a megalodon. If it's not a giant shark, then what else could it be? Could other species, thought to be extinct, have survived in the ocean depths, places beyond the reach of modern science? According to some paleontologists, the answer isn't a definite no. That's because Earth's oceans have remained isolated far longer than its land masses. A species that disappeared from land due to geological processes may have found a sealed-off refuge in deep-sea trenches or underwater cave systems. This idea brings one particular prehistoric creature to the forefront: Mosasaurus. Mosasaurus was a true sea dragon that lived during the Cretaceous period, growing over 50 feet in length. With its long, muscular body and powerful jaws, it was considered the dominant predator of the oceans. This creature, unlike any modern marine reptile, also gained recognition in popular culture through the Jurassic World series. While its portrayal in the films, swallowing giant whales in a single bite, might seem exaggerated, fossil records show that it was indeed capable of hunting large whales. Of course, the fact that this creature has never been seen alive weakens the possibility of its survival. But there's one critical reality that shouldn't be overlooked. More than 80% of the world's oceans remain unexplored, and most of those unexplored areas are located thousands of meters below the surface. In these dark zones, beyond the reach of cameras, divers, and modern technology, it's not considered completely impossible for evolutionarily isolated species to still exist. In particular, depths below 10,000 feet are almost entirely uncharted, and that creates a highly suitable environment for a massive creature to survive unnoticed in a hidden region. Moreover, this isn't just about geographic inaccessibility, it's about technological limitations as well. Deep-sea research requires high budgets, complex engineering, and risky operations. Pressure, darkness, low temperatures, and magnetic distortions all impair the functionality of cameras and unmanned vehicles. It's often said that the surface of the moon has been imaged more clearly than the ocean floor. That's why the possibility of undiscovered creatures living in the deep sea isn't just plausible, it's increasingly being accepted as an expected reality. But what if these creatures aren't just surviving? What if they're also growing, evolving, and adapting to their environment? In the scientific world, organisms that manage to survive for millions of years with little to no change by adapting to extreme environmental conditions are called living fossils. Just like horseshoe crabs, coelacanths, or certain species of sea sponges. But some species don't just persist, they respond to their surroundings and transform. Evolutionary pressures can make them more efficient, more adaptable, and more dangerous. If a species descended from the Megalodon retreated from the safe waters near the surface and moved into the ocean's darkest trenches, into an environment of high pressure, freezing temperatures, and eternal darkness, its current form could be vastly different from its ancient ancestors. Perhaps it is now warm-blooded. Perhaps it hunts more silently, more slowly, but far more lethally. It might possess a nervous system that perceives its surroundings more acutely, senses that track electromagnetic waves, and an organism capable of detecting its prey from miles away. A similar line of thought applies to another prehistoric giant, Mosasaurus. Measuring over 50 feet in length, it too was a top predator in the oceans during the age of the dinosaurs. If such a creature managed to survive to the present day through some form of evolutionary transition, what would its modern form look like? Maybe it has now adapted to cold waters, evolved from lungs to an advanced gill system, or even developed electromagnetic camouflage. As strange as these ideas may sound, with more than 80% of the ocean still unexplored, these aren't science fiction. They are hypotheses standing on the threshold of scientific possibility. And maybe somewhere in the deep sea, these evolved creatures are still roaming, just beyond the reach of human eyes. Maybe we've simply not been looking in the right place yet.